Chapter 10. The Doctrine of Avatara. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according to his work shall be. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Revelation 22:12-13. The Order of the 15 was put forth by the Great White Lodge for definite work in helping to prepare the way and make a place for the coming of the great world teacher, the Avatar. For ere such a divine being can appear on earth, there must be a nucleus formed of awakened souls, not only ardently longing for his advent, but who are sufficiently instructed in the law and developed through love to recognize him when he comes. The time has now come to give to our pupils such further information concerning this great event as the time permits. What is an avatar? For the term being used ought to be well understood. It is a descent of the manifested deity into an elusive form of individuality, an appearance which to men on this elusive plane is objective, but is not so in sober fact. That elusive form having neither past nor future, because it had neither previous incarnation nor will have subsequent rebirth, has not to do with karma, which is therefore no hold on it. In other words, a true avatar is a focusing of the individual cosmic Christ principle into and through the individuality of the great soul who has reached divinity, hence has no karma. Such a great soul must be an initiate into the mysteries, one who has overcome and reached nirvanic bliss, but who voluntarily incarnates in the flesh for the purpose of becoming a vehicle for an individualization of the Christos, that it may accomplish a special definite mission in humanity. Such as one sacrifices his life in the spiritual realms and offers himself as a vehicle because of his great love for suffering humanity, and in answers to its great need for a more direct manifestation of divine love and wisdom. The whole doctrine of Avatara is so hedged about with mysteries whose elucidation belongs to the higher initiations, that only a more or less imperfect outline can be given here. Generally speaking, however, an avatar is not a mortal, but a divine being, who descends from the spiritual realms and suddenly appears on earth in a body composed of atoms which vibrate to the rhythm of the spiritual plane, and hence are immortal. The Ophites and Nazarenes taught that. Therefore Christos, the perfect, united himself with Sophia, divine wisdom, descended through the 7 planetary regions, assuming in each an analogous form, and entered into the man Jesus at the moment of his baptism in the Jordan. From this time forth, Jesus began to work miracles. Before that time, he had been entirely ignorant of his own mission. This is the true interpretation of the symbol in which Jesus is said to be born of a virgin. That is, he descended from the great celestial virgin Sophia as a direct avatar. From the life of Jesus as given in the Bible, it may be inferred that he was not a direct avatar, having been born of a woman. Nevertheless, he was a direct avatar, for that story is not a history of his physical life, but an allegorical account of the soul life of every great initiate. As above indicated, the Christos becomes individualized upon all planes, beginning with the highest spiritual plane and gradually descending to earth. In the case of the coming avatar, this individualization has already reached the higher astral plane, the next above the earth plane. When the mission of an avatar requires an appearance upon the physical plane, his spiritual body responds to his will, lowers its rate of vibration to the keynote of the physical plane, somewhat similar to the way steam can be condensed into ice, and he appears among men in a body to all intents physical, an appearance which to man on this elusive plane is objective, but is not so in sober fact, in that it is not a mortal body confined to the physical plane and subject to death and decay. Such a divine being is not born of woman, but simply appears in a body far more glorious, sensitive, and powerful than any mortal body could be. Such a body can manifest upon any plane of consciousness in response to the will of its possessor. Since such a great soul is one with his Father in heaven, he has all knowledge and all wisdom, hence would require no earthly instruction or schooling, for his consciousness would be one with the Christ consciousness, hence all-knowing. His manifested personality would transcend all racial characteristics and limitations, would be the type of perfected man. Hence he could not be pointed out as belonging to a particular race, but would embody the perfection of all races, and therefore would not arouse the race prejudice of even the most advanced. The appearance of an avatar is determined by the needs of humanity, and manifestation is as great as the highest ideal of the most advanced of mankind to man. He comes in answer to the cry of many, many hearts for more love and light, for higher ideals, and for a clear understanding of the universal spiritual truth contained in the one wisdom religion. As more and more hearts send up their cries, the demand creates a vacuum or a negative vortex into which the positive complementary force of the Christ principle must flow and find an embodied manifestation humanity. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, the Christ, said, "I produce myself among creatures, O son of Bharata, whenever there is a decline of virtue and an insurrection of vice and injustice in the world, and thus I incarnate from age to age for the preservation of the just, the destruction of the wicked, and the establishment of righteousness." This law is illustrated by the popular saying, "The darkest hour is just before the dawn." Therefore, when we find that humanity has reached a point of great spiritual, mental, and social unrest, during which the established and recognized spiritual teachers have gotten so far away from their true spiritual guidance that the great mass of humanity are like sheep without a shepherd, and are sending out their heart cries without ceasing. What is truth? Who shall show us the way? How long, O Lord, how long? This cry must bring forth its answer. In other words, when the enlightened thought of the day recognizes, as it does today, that its spiritual teachers are no longer in personal touch with the higher realms, and are no longer divinely called, guided, and appointed to their offices, a new regime is demanded. When the ceremonies employed and the sacraments administered by priests and ministers no longer carry divine potency, it is time for a true priesthood to be established. When the covenant of marriage is no longer a sacred sacrament, but is degenerated into the mere recital of a few words before one who has no spiritual power to discern whether or not the man and woman belong to each other spiritually, as all divinely ordained priests have, and when through such ignorance the resulting mistaken marriages degrade the divine creative power into mere sex gratification, impurity, and lust, then there must come a fresh outpouring of divine love, purity, and wisdom. For there is never a sincere prayer uttered by the children of men that does not, by the very law of the universe, create its answer. Neither social, political, nor economic injustice and inharmony can ever be truly adjusted and regulated and graft abolished until the divinely appointed priesthood, who are under personal conscious direction of the progenitors and guides of the race, is reestablished. The question of the marriage sacrament alone demands a divinely appointed and trained body of spiritual leaders, a true priesthood, who have the power to know who should partake of that sacrament together and who should not. If there were no other need in humanity for an avatar, this alone would be sufficient to call one into manifestation, that a new order of true priests of the Lord or the divine law might be established. But there are many other crying needs expressed in present-day social, economic, and political conditions, as well as the awakening of many, many hearts to the need of more direct spiritual teaching. Hence all the signs of the time point to the necessity for a fresh outpouring of divine love and wisdom in this present age. As the avatar descends to the higher worlds and draws near the earth plane, all hearts who are open to his influence or respond to the keynote of his message come into more or less conscious touch with him interiorly through the illuminating power of his divine consciousness, and feel an unquenchable desire and an irresistible urge to purify, uplift, and make more harmonious that phase of work for humanity in which they are interested. And today all classes, types, and conditions of mind are feeling the influence of a great spiritual awakening, which is giving them a greater vision, a greater realization of the needs of humanity, and the possibility of their filling a wider range of usefulness and accomplishing greater results. And this no matter whether they are more or less blindly following the urge to do good along philanthropic, humanitarian, sociological, or political lines of endeavor, or whether they are occultists who understand the law and are working more or less consciously under the inspiration and direction of these great souls, the masters of wisdom, whose love, wisdom, and power is back of and working through every effort for the betterment of the race in direct proportion to the ability of the various channels to assimilate and make use of their help. An avatar, then, is the focusing and embodiment of the same Christ principle that is manifested in all ages and all avatars, each of whom thus become the Christ for the age in which he appeared. Each direct descent of deity into physical embodiment, however, is preceded by many lesser and incomplete manifestations called Avisha avatars. In these cases, an advanced soul, who has not yet reached full mastery, but who is sufficiently pure, loving, and compassionate, is chosen and overshadowed by the Christ principle for a certain time and for a certain purpose. In every organization, society, order, or movements working along truly spiritual, occult, or mystic lines, there will be certain advanced members who will be able to reach up into the spiritual realm and come into conscious communion with the Avatar. From these advanced souls, one who is especially pure, gifted, well-trained, and worthy will be chosen as the mouthpiece through whom the message of the Avatar will be given out to his particular society or movement. It is necessary, however, that this vehicle be capable of receiving and transmitting as much of the divine wisdom in its purity as the stage of evolution and degree of spiritualization of his bodies is capable of expressing. Hence, such a vehicle must be carefully trained, disciplined, and prepared that his faculties and powers may reach their greatest perfection. In each case, the chosen one is a Christ only during the period of the overshadowing, at all other times being but the human and mortal personage. Not there is any limit to possible revelation, for the overshadowing is always the Christos, which is not a being, but that essence of divinity which is everlasting law, everlasting wisdom, the essence of truth from the beginning, from everlasting to everlasting. Jesus speaks of this overshadowing power as the Comforter and tells his disciples that it is expedient for him to go away that the Comforter may come. This simply means that being the Avatar, he condensed or focused the Christos in himself, which at his departure would be perceived by mankind apart from its manifestations through his personality and shine in every heart prepared to correlate with it. But the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things, and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. In other words, each truly spiritual, pure, and sincere society and movement will have some illumined soul who will be an Avisha Avatar to that society or movement to prepare its followers for the coming of the Avatar, as John the Baptist prepared the Hebrews for the coming of Jesus. No doubt in many instances, such as an Avisha Avatar will be considered by his followers to be the Avatar in person, but this is easily determined if you remember that an Avatar is not a mortal. When such a claim is made for any human being, however, great or wise, you may know that he could not be more than an Avisha Avatar and be mortal. Nevertheless, the essence of this message would be that an Avatar, for water is still water, whether measured by a thimbleful or by an ocean. Furthermore, if he be a pure and enlightened Avisha, he will not only refuse the title of Avatar, but will exclaim with John the Baptist, "One mightier than I cometh, the latchet of whose shoes I am not worthy to unloose." He will also discountenance all adulation and personal worship. The characteristic of his teaching will include not only the much abused universal brotherhood, but also the true tolerance that arises from a recognition of the divine guidance of other teachers and Avishas. For one evidence of a true Avisha must be a recognition of the divine mission of others. Necessarily, the messages of the various Avisha avatars will differ in details, methods of presentation, etc., for the ability of such a channel to give out the teaching depends upon such factors as the line of endeavor he is interested in, his race thought, his mental and spiritual capacity, his habits of life, his knowledge of the laws and philosophy of the higher life, and the intellectual training of his mind, through which all the teachings must pass has received. In this way, the members of every society and movement shall hear the divine truth spoken in their own language, wherein they were born, that is, couched in the terminology, symbols, and characteristic methods of expression peculiar to their own avenue of truth. Thus, all classes of humanity will be given the opportunity to do their part in preparing for the coming of the Great One by forming a universal center in which he can manifest. This does not necessarily mean a center in the sense of a segregated community, but a universal center in the thought world from which the currents of force will radiate that shall affect the minds and hearts of the whole world. Each Avisha avatar will no doubt find a community for his own followers, and out of each community there must ultimately be chosen those advanced disciples who have been able to recognize the Christ in the air or on the higher planes, and hence are able to recognize him when he manifests in the flesh. These will be gathered together to be his immediate disciples and bodyguard. The avatar will not come to any one society, movement, order, or sect, but will come to humanity. His truth will be so divine and perfect, yet so simple, unbiased, and unprejudiced by the characteristic of any cult, that they will be equally applicable to all, no matter what their race, creed, or special trend or thought may be. We have in the Gospel of St. John, in language so simple as to be a complete and incomprehensible blind to all but the initiated, the whole doctrine of the Avatara. We read, "In the beginning was the Word, the Christos, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. God in that it was and is the totality of spiritual wisdom, the creative Word, the manifested Christ. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The Christ principle is the essence of divine life, without which there can be no life, and being divine, this life is the light of men, and is distinct from mere animal life, which is but the outward and densest covering of the divine essence. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended not. That is, it is hidden in the human body." These verses also bear testimony that this light of the Christos is once more to be manifested in humanity, as it has been manifested periodically from the beginning. This is but another and more compact statement of a deep esoteric truth and a most sacred mystery, which has filled volume after volume in more ancient scriptures. In all religions now on earth there is an exoteric or public and an inner or secret teaching. Something analogous is true of the manifested Christos. It has its exoteric manifestations and its inner essence. Heretofore, in every manifestation of an avatar, it has been the outer covering, as it were, of this power that is manifested through the vehicle, and even this had been more than humanity could grasp or understand. In the coming avatar will be manifested more of the inner essence of the Christ than has ever been before possible, because thousands in the world today are shaking off the garments of their dense materialized conceptions of life and are responding to the higher spiritual ideals. Every great teacher, such as Zoroaster, Gautama Buddha, Jesus, has founded a new religion, or at most a new expression of the one religion. They have all taught the wisdom religion, but in ways which appeal to the different people to which they came. While each of those great teachers has taken the world a step onward and emphasized some other phase of the divine truth, still they have founded but larger sects, rather than brought the world into one universal brotherhood. The Christian religion is universally acknowledged to be the greatest factor in modern civilization, and the time has now come for it to take an advanced step through the awakening of a sense of a deep, underlying, vital truth common to all religions in the hearts of all earnest seekers among Christian people, thus taking the first step on the return journey to the one wisdom religion. There are many prophecies in the Bible and elsewhere relating to the Avatar who closes this cycle, which have never been fulfilled in any sense. The book of Revelation is distinctly a history of the preparation for the coming of such an Avatar. In it is allegorically set forth all that must occur in the world during an avataric cycle. A careful study of this book will prove that it contains teachings identical with the above, as well as with those of the ancient revelations pertaining to the mysteries. This will be easily understood if the student will remember that the Bible covers the whole period of an avataric cycle, that is, from the first coming to the reappearance of the Avatar at the close of the cycle. Jesus, speaking of the Christ principle within him, said, "I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, which is, and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty," a most blasphemous assertion if referring to his human personality. This emphasizes the fact that it was not the man Jesus, but the Christos that manifested, and that it was the same power in all ages and all manifestations, and that the same divine power which manifested through the personality called Jesus will be the power to manifest through the Avatar who closes this messianic cycle and plants the seed for the new. But instead of this return being merely the founding of new religion or sect, humanity, having passed the lowest point of the downward arc of the cycle and begun laboriously to climb the upward arc, the coming Avatar must fulfill the prophecies already given, bring to earth as much of the divine wisdom as humanity can attain to the end of the 6th and 7th sub-races, and plant the seed for the future 6th great race, whose manifestation will usher in the Golden Age. The time of his coming cannot be given out, but it will be in exact accord with the astronomical and numerical cycles hinted at elsewhere. Moreover, all who will be drawn into the coming brotherhood will find that they are in some mysterious way connected with the secret cycles of the Messiah. The Avatar cannot come until the cycle is fulfilled, until the stars are in their proper position, as we said in a former lesson. It is a fact that the creative force flows in cyclic waves, and in a cycle corresponding closely to a century of Earth life. The ebb and flow of this great force is first downward, the first quarter of the century, it passes from the spiritual world into the mental and psychic. The second quarter down into the physical, and then in the last half of the century back again into the spiritual plane, following the reverse order. But the deductions that have been drawn from these facts by some are arbitrary and misleading. As the force descends from the spiritual plane into the psychic, into the first quarter of the century, 1 to 25, it causes great creative activity in the psychic and mental worlds, and the masters take advantage of this fact to work with the tide. Consequently, all those who have developed their faculties so they can reach the higher psychic plane can meet the masters upon that plane, not upon the astral, and can benefit correspondingly by the great activity of that period. Later, during the second quarter of the century, 25 to 50, the force descends into the physical world and touches the lowest point of its arc, but it is still spiritual creative force. The natural deduction from this is, therefore, that the first quarter of the century, 1 to 25, is most emphatically the planting and growing time, corresponding to the springtime of the year. It would be during this quarter of the century that an avatar would first manifest himself to his more advanced disciples and plant in their hearts the seed of his teaching. The second quarter of the century, 25 to 50, corresponds to summer, the time when this spiritual creative force, having penetrated to the earth plane, must bring forth its fruit upon that plane. Whatever has been planted must bring forth its fruit, provided it has been a fruitful season, and that is, providing the work has been faithfully done and the spring growth carefully nurtured. Should this part of the cycle of the century correspond with certain greater cycles, it would be possible at this period for the avatar to manifest openly among men. He being the fruit of the culminating cycles, the Master Jesus was spoken of as the first fruits of them that sleep. The word slept indicating not in manifestation. Should the avatar come, the result of his teaching and his contact with the earth would mature during this period. At the end of this quarter of the century, the force, having reached its lowest point, would turn upward, and his teachings would raise humanity with it. The third quarter, 50 to 75, corresponds to the autumn, when the fruit is harvested, when we, which are alive and remain, shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. The last quarter, 75 to 100, corresponds to the winter time, when the ground is frozen. At that time, after the harvest has been gathered, and the spiritual force is indrawn, and the world has again fallen away from the true teachings, it becomes necessary for the Lodge of Masters again to send out an agent, or agents, on the physical plane, to break the ground and prepare for the new springtime. At such a time, much of the activity of the Lodge is directed to the physical plane through physical embodiments. Consequently, these early years of the century are pregnant with power. As the years go on, this great creative force of love must be brought down to earth by those who can receive it. For only as we are able to reach up into the higher psychic realms, and there meet and correlate with the great teachers, is it possible to prepare for the coming to earth of the fruit, or the embodied power of the Christ force, in the person of the avatar whose coming and culminating of many cycles now makes possible. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Already the watchers have seen the Christ star, the star that has announced to all wise men in all ages the appearance of an avatar. Consequently, we believe that the avatar will soon come, not in a physical body born of woman, but in a more ethereal or spiritual body, capable, nevertheless, of appearing objectively as a physical body as occasion demands. Instead of this being a time to sit down and con old lessons, it is time to be up and doing, but on lines altogether different from those suitable to the period of the breaking of the ground and the sowing of the seed. This is why the order of the 15 is now put forth, to enable all who are ready to grow to the point where they can, through special instructions, come into personal touch with the Masters and the Avatar. It is asserted by many advanced thinkers that the present wave of psychic unrest is a sign of the near advent of the Avatar, and that a widespread development of psychic faculties will usher in his coming. This is indeed a sign of the coming, but it is not strictly correct to say that it will be the characteristic. For although there will be a period of great psychic activity, not however due to new senses, but to the use of the present faculties upon the inner plane, it will but serve to prove the mere psychic development is not the end to be desired. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord God, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it. The spiritual understanding of the people shall be darkened, and they shall wander from sea to sea, seeking the word of the Lord. Today many are running to and fro after self-advertised teachers, seeking to develop their psychic faculties. And many who have begun to use their faculties on even the lowest stratum of the astral plane set themselves up as teachers or write books giving the world minute directions covering the whole field of thought and action, from the feeding of their animal bodies to the attainment of adeptship. With the fragments of knowledge thus obtained, such teachers claim that every other psychic who has gleaned a few different fragments is wrong. This psychic awakening, conflict, and confusion will come as the first step in a wonderful wave of activity in all walks of life, tending to extreme selfishness and unbrotherliness, for each will claim the truth and start sect after sect, and like a pack of wolves tearing a carcass in pieces, each one will be ready to fight to the death to maintain and guard his bone against the whole pack. Then shall begin wars and rumors of wars, and the struggles for supremacy. Now the brother shall betray the brother to death, and the father the son, and their children shall rise up against their parents, and shall cause them to be put to death. This will be but the beginning of the end, and the prospect would be hopeless indeed, did we not know that out of those who run to and fro, one by one there will come the few who will open their spiritual faculties, sweep away the mist of prejudice, and see the light of the Christos shining in their brother's heart. These few who will band together to help spread the light rather than to increase the confusion, and they will be the remnant who will survive the physical catastrophes and usher in the golden period of the present Kali Yuga age. These will not seek the kingdom through psychic development, but through the awakening of their love and compassion. They will find the Christ light illuminating their hearts and opening all the psychic doors normally and without effort. These will be the 144,000 who will meet the Lord in the air, that is, in the higher spiritual plane, to which they can penetrate because of the love and compassion developed. Only when the Christ love is manifested and has thus awakened the hearts of a considerable number of disciples can a center be formed in which this power can be focused and individualized in the person of the coming avatar. When the birth of Jesus was announced, it was only after a particular angel had announced the Christ that the angelic host of heaven joined in their chorus. So today all who are faithfully guarding their flocks upon the mountaintop will first hear the announcement and then the response. The Order of the 15 is put forth in an effort to awaken the Christ love in the hearts of men, rather than to cater to the intellect or the desire for psychic development. For only those who can correlate with this Christ power can be gathered together as his disciples. The aim of this movement is especially to help all Christian people to find the deep, underlying vital truth common to all religions in their own, and thus truly, and in the only way possible, prepare for a universal brotherhood on earth in which each soul shall find the same vital truth spoken in their own language, couched and taught in terms of the religion in which he was born. This is the only way of bringing about brotherhood, for the dream of a brotherhood in which all classes of humanity and all varieties of race thought are forced to flow in one direction and accept as final truth couched in one set form, no matter how lofty the form or how beautiful its trend, is but a fantastic chimera born of the human mind, and whose attempted practical establishment has always ended and will always end in confusion, antagonism, and unbrotherliness far more intense than before the attempt was made. It is only by touching the deep, underlying springs of universal love that universal brotherhood can be attained. Therefore, we ask one and all to seek to develop the Christ love in their hearts, remembering that only when it shows in their lives and makes them more Christ-like can it be said to have germinated. A seed may lie dormant for ages, but the instant it opens its heart to the life of the sun, it begins to grow. So it is with the Christ seed. The Christ light is in every man, but we can say the Christ star has arisen only when it shines forth and illumines our daily life. The Christ love is a consuming fire, and all fire spreads. If the life remains cold and dark and selfish, the fire is not yet lit. This is the first step toward universal brotherhood. For when we find the Christ in our own hearts, we seek it in every other heart.